Um, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel and Galilee. I still have not figured out a solution to up the sound other than going to an old MacBook Pro, which I think is out of date and you can't update it. And I don't know. So I'm doing the best I can. I got the iPad that I'm broadcasting with is the best one that I have, and it has 4 microphones. So I'm doing what I can do. If I do horizontal on this, which I believe would expose more microphones, what happens is YouTube downgrades the video because they want these vertical, I think they call this portrait and the other is landscape. They want this so people can watch it on their phones. There's way more people using phones, I think, than tablets and computers now. So anyway, that's that. So what we're going to cover today is the wars, of course. What happened, what's going to happen with Iran, what do we know, what do we don't know, what do we think. And we're going to cover the hurricanes in Bible prophecy in Jeremiah 51, and we're going to cover the sleeper agents in the same passage, Jeremiah 51. Now, those of you that are true believers should just relax and see this as prophecy being fulfilled. You'd be fine. Those of you that are clinging to false teachers and other gospels and other Jesus and all this other stuff are going to get upset. Normally, this hurts my offerings because people don't like to hear the truth. But if I don't tell you the truth, then I'm going to be getting in trouble with Jehovah, and this is not something I'm going to do. I fear the Lord. So I think you need to know this stuff. I'm sure of it. I don't have doubts. So it's on you when you get that way. You can't, in these days, you can't expect to run around finding teachers and, oh, America's going to repent, everything's going to be okay, and this and that. You got another hurricane coming. It's a 5 already. Now, have we ever heard of a hurricane coming in at a 6, a 7, or an 8? No. Does that mean it's never going to happen? It does not mean that. Earthquakes. They have had some. Now, they haven't had Richter scale ratings for that long. I think maybe into the late 1880s, possibly, but I think it was more in the 1920, 30, or 40 or something like that. They did have an earthquake. They registered at 9 or 9 something 1, I think, But does that mean we won't have a 10.8 or an 11.9 or a 12.2? No. No. Now, when we get into prophecy, we're going to talk today about the acceptable year of the Lord. And before we get there, I want to explain to you that's in Isaiah 61. The acceptable word is not a great translation. It means pleasant, okay? And acceptable has a ring to it because the Yovel year means you get your inheritance back, and Israel's the place where he accepts you, but it's getting out there now. It can be that the year of redemption works with the year of Jubilee, but it does not have to be that way. I keep saying that. It's a theory. It could be, but the problem with that is then we would have a really darn good idea about the day and the hour because we would know when the new moon is going to appear and trigger the first month of the next year, assumptive that it would be a Jubilee year, big assumption. There's no preparation for it. That would mean we're in a Yovel year. I don't see a lot of signs of us being in a Yovel year. So it's, it's a theory that could make sense, but on the other hand, it may just be that the Lord is referencing the year of redemption because it's very much like a Jubilee year. Not in its entirety, but like it. Okay? Now, so what I'm going to discuss with you today is going to be a more rapid bringing in of the year of redemption. Okay? All right. So we're going to get into it, and we're going to talk a lot about the scriptures on Daughter of Babylon, which is America, and they're not pretty. And at least half of you are in America. So, again, if I don't tell you this, am I your friend? Hardly. The church doesn't tell you this, but I do. You need to know these things so you're ready, you're prepared. Okay, you know what's going on. The church is going to go into derision. They're waiting to go up and wave bye-bye and leave their clothes on the floor and, get the white robe and go up to heaven and, all this stuff. They're going to go into complete derision. I've told you that the church, this is the end of the church age. It's not a good age at all. This is Yeshua said, now it's the day and you could work, but soon the night comes and no man works. Well, we're coming to the close of the night. For 350 years after the resurrection of Yeshua, there was no so-called church. Didn't exist. Constantine, a bad dude, started it. It evolved quickly into a horrific Catholic church, which went on for many centuries. And then and they also were dominating Jerusalem at times, as were the Muslims, because Satan knows the importance of Jerusalem. So then we go into, the people just tout the church and they don't follow the scriptures, which I've told you a million times with many scriptures. So they're going to go into confusion, derision, not know what to do, and they're going to perish. Okay? They've rejected knowledge, and the Lord says he'll reject them, and that's it. If you think otherwise, then you're calling God and his word a liar. Now, is there room for people coming out of it? Yes. What about somebody that just got saved last week? Well, this person doesn't really know what's going on yet, probably. So, we got to leave room here. Okay? Now, I'm also going to talk about why the true gospel with the temple, the priesthood, the glory of God of Israel in Jerusalem and Israel is so obtuse, shocking, and weird to the church world. They, I don't believe, can adapt. Can the true believers adapt? Yeah, they're zealous for this. They're waiting for it. But the others, no, I don't think they could adapt. It's repulsive to them. And I'll get into that with you. It's kind of a carryover from yesterday where I talked about things like this. Okay. So today, what do we got now? It's 75 degrees. Sadly, it'll be 91, which isn't that bad, but bad enough. Tomorrow, high 90. Then we drop down into the 80s, and it seems to stay there. Actually, next week, a week from now, it shows a high of 80, then highs of 79, 80. So it would really be nice. So many months of this dry heat, no rain, I think rain is great when it's in the warm weather. In Israel, it absolutely stinks. I could remember this like rain in January or February in New York, where it's like, 42 degrees. It's not that cold here. And it's raining. It's miserable, Now, summer rain, when it's, even 73, 78 degrees and it's raining, it's rather pleasant. It's nice. You get the ozone in the air, it cleans the air. It's not bad at all, But in Israel, when it rains, it's cold and miserable. It's not fun. I've been pounding my body with red light now for many months, and I don't really think I have any symptoms of arthritis, but we'll find out. I don't think I do anymore. So we'll find out. You know, the more and more I study red light, the more and more I realize that there's not that many people that know what's going on. This guy on YouTube named Alex Fergus is the best source. He's not a manufacturer. So when you go to manufacturers, you got a real problem with bias, you know, when they start talking and giving you theories and lectures. He gets a commission. He tells you to use his discount code. Usually you get 5 to 10% off. And he gets a commission, and he's full disclosure. But the saving grace here is the guy must have 15 or 20 companies that he does this with. So he's not biased towards a single company. He recently moved from New Zealand to, he's a very bright guy. He has a background as an athlete, a natural athlete, weightlifter without the steroids. He has a background of a physical trainer. This is a sharp cookie, okay? He tells you the truth, but he doesn't always yell it at you because he's kind of worried about his business. So he's pushed and pulled. And like now he's been promoting red lights that you put on your brain, on your head. And the doctors that do the research on this have found that when you do that, and they take brain scans and give people cognitive tests and all that, it improves their situation very, very noticeably. The markers are extreme. And then this one guy tested it and put red light on the hand, on the palm, and then tested their brains with scans and cognitive tests, and they had the same level of improvement as if you put it on the head. Right? So then people said, oh, you're hitting the acupuncture points, because there are people that hit acupuncture points with red light. I don't think acupuncture is worth very much. Maybe centuries ago they had a better way of doing it, but I don't find it, you know, at all effective. I went for many treatments in the past, and it's, if anything, it's minimal. It's, you know. So he did that, and then he said, well, let's test it. So he went and put the red light on some part of the arm where there's no acupuncture points that relate to the brain. And he got this same level of results again. So Alex Fergus is promoting all these devices that are, you know, $1,500 to $5,000 or $6,000 that you wear on your head to do it. But when he was interviewed, he quietly was proposing, is it better to buy these devices, or could you just use your regular red light panel, which you can get a good one for less than $200 at AliExpress, by the way. Just use this and, you know, put it on your head and, you know, shine it by your head. And, you know, so he did admit that it would be better to do that. So he moved to Dubai. I do not detect any signs of this guy being a Muslim. I've looked and looked and looked. And I think what he's doing is he moved over there to set up a red light manufacturing company where he intends to manufacture his own red light devices. So he basically, I told you this guy's plenty smart. He's been picking the brains of the manufacturers for many years now. And he understands it. So I think he knows what's going to really work and how to be cost effective. So there's great tax advantages in Dubai. There's shipping advantages, so he could have reduced shipping prices. And, you know, he's pretty sharp cookie, and I think he's going to knock the other red light panel manufacturers for a loop. You know, and I detect inconsistencies with the way these people talk. But okay, you're here for other stuff. Let's go. So I'm going to go into the live. If any of you want to ask me questions about red light stuff, just send me an email. My email address is in the lowest line down in the description box, and I will put it up in the chat. Let me go into the live stream, see what kind of garbage I got to throw out. And, you know, we got people that hate Israel, hate Jews, hate God, hate the Bible. There we go. We got Let me go into sound and picture. All right. Somebody's in here saying, please help me. I have no idea who this person is. All right, I'm going to put a couple of quick posts up there. Bear with me. We have a lot of war news to talk about, too. What happened in Lebanon last night. Big time. I can't talk too much because then I make typos. And now I'm going to put my email address up and we'll get going. Okay, being a Bible-believing site, Old Testament and New Testament, I'm going to do some praise when I untangle my cords here. Okay. There is no God like Jehovah. Let's watch people leave. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 All right, so what we did last night is we had 100 planes hitting targets in Lebanon. We hit 120 targets. They're still launching missile barrages at us, not the huge ones, but they still muster up a barrage. Okay? Not that the Iron Dome can't handle it, because they can. And it this is the way it goes when you deteriorate or destroy these idiots. You know, this is what happened in Gaza. You start seeing reduction in the missiles, and then you start seeing pauses where you have a day or two with no missiles, then it comes back. We learned a lot, a lot in Gaza, and we're applying it in Lebanon. It's somewhat different. They're stronger in Lebanon, they're bigger, they're not as underground at all like Hamas was in Gaza. There's not that much underground stuff like we experienced with Hamas, okay? So, we're demolishing them. And the reason for that is we don't want blowback from them when we hit Iran. Iran's strength against Israel was, oh, we'll keep telling everybody we're going to destroy you and we hate you and we're going to fund and back and train and weaponize these proxies that surround your country. Okay? So Iran is one of Satan's chosen people. And we're going to, kill you and wipe you out and we'll put you in ovens alive, etc. They did that to a baby in the south of Israel on October 7th. They did actually take a baby and put it in an oven alive. These people are like what you would see serial killers, rapists that are in a psychiatric hospital for the criminally insane because they're not considered fit to stand trial. Okay? And they hold them in a psychiatric hospital because you can't turn them loose. They're a danger to themselves and others. And then if they ever get better, then it's debatable if you can, put them on trial because when they did the crimes, they were out of their mind. So they could, who knows, anyway, it's a flawed judicial system. So look at the recidivism rate. I mean, it's so high, I know some people that were telling me statistics on Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's something like 75 or 80 or 90%. I can't remember. Very, very high number go back to drinking sooner or later. So Alcoholics Anonymous is not a very viable solution, and that's because I believe they teach them to go to a higher power. They don't care who the higher power is. They just say they need a higher power. So what do you think they're going to pick up? Demons, right? That's all it is. So they pick up demons, and eventually the demons get bored with them, we're tired, and they put them back on alcohol. They move them back to that. Anyway, we're not here to become rehab specialists. So it's a question of just peeling the layers off with Hezbollah. Gaza made a small resurgence with ability to launch some missiles and stuff, and we just keep bombing them and going back and forth. I want to tell you this, and this is relevant to what's coming later. If Israel was not pressured by Biden, okay, the war would have been over last January. This January 2024. It would have been finished. Would thousands more terrorists have been killed? Yes. Would more civilians have been killed? Yes. But you got to remember, all the surrounding Arab countries don't want these civilians coming out of Gaza to their countries. First of all, they don't trust them, they don't want them, they don't need the burden. But above and beyond that, they're there to provide human shields for Hamas and to be able to make Israel look like a genocidal nation to the world. These people celebrated when October 7th happened and other attacks. And several thousand of them, 3,000 to 6,000, we don't know, invaded Israel along with Hamas to rape, plunder, pillage, steal, take hostages. They came in because to them it was a celebration. We had a phone recording, one guy calling his mother. We caught him and we got his phone saying, "I just killed 10 Jews." Bragging about it like he did an act of God. So Israel is not, this is not like a Russia-Ukraine war, okay? This is something far sicker, okay? This is not like America against Japan in World War II or against Italy or against Germany. This is completely different. This is a sick thing, okay? And the Americans haven't figured out yet, but we'll cover that later, that they also want to kill all the Americans because America is standing in their way of world dominance. So is NATO. So is Europe. South and Central America doesn't do much of anything. Those countries are so horribly corrupt and rotten, and they don't do much of anything. They grow food and stuff. Asia is a weird place. It's divided camp. You got South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, and then you got China and North Korea and all. It's a mess. It's a mess. You got the Philippines, which is leaning towards America. You got Australia, which is definitely on the side of America. New Zealand, I don't know what's up with them. And it's they want to control the world now. America using their proxy Israel. Now, what do I mean? Israel's a proxy. Everybody knows Ukraine's a proxy of America and NATO. Look how they use them. Putin bombs them, missile attacks them, wipes out civilians. Many civilians leave the country, and they just keep giving Ukraine more and more weapons. And that's what they're doing with Israel. But I think it's going to change in the next couple of days. All right, so we have to, we're going 24/7, pounding and pounding and pounding Lebanon to make them not of much effect when we start fighting Iran. And it appears to me that Israel's in a very big hurry to pound the Hezbollah and Lebanon into the ground. By the way, the bird's doing great. My wife's feeding the bird a liquid diet, not giving it solids. Fruit and vegetables, that kind of stuff, ground up in a liquid. And a little bit, then wait a half hour, an hour, and a little more, and a little more. Yesterday, she gave the bird a walnut, and it looks like it worked out okay. That's what the vet said to do. So we, trying to bring her back into eating more regular, So then what you do is you build. You take what we got in the cage they have, or the atrium. We have a metal dish, a stainless steel dish, and we put all sorts of stuff in there: vegetables, fruit, seeds, nuts, this, that. And they work at it all day. They generally eat a lot in the morning, and then during the day they'll go nibble, and they got high metabolisms. And then in the evening, when it starts getting sundownish, they hit the food bowl again. Of course, you also have a water bowl for them. But the Nimrods tend to take baths in their water bowl. What are you going to do? You can't do much about that. So they in the wild they drink, they'll drink out of a puddle and stuff like that, So they eat in the evening before they go to sleep, and that sustains them during the night, and then in the morning. Once it gets dark, the birds stop it. They start talking a lot, making noises, and then they go to sleep. They don't want to fly in the dark. That would be under only extreme emergencies would they ever do that. So they stay in their perch when, we have a big atrium to stay in, and they just stay on whatever perch they're on, and they usually go up high. The thing's quite high, so they go up high, and that's not because anybody can get in, no animal or anything. It's quite secure, but they do that out of instinct, so they're away from predators like cats. One of the birds meows, so I know that we know cats come around. They look for garbage and droppings from the birds' food. They'll eat other birds. We get all kinds of other birds, wild birds, come around and eat the food that falls on the floor out of the cage, which sometimes happens. So anyway, the bird's still doing good. Keep praying for the bird to make a full and total recovery. Which reminds me, we got quite a few requests for prayer and toss today, and I don't want to forget that, so let's do those. Okay, the first one is for JS, Jack Sierra, JS, Jack Sierra. Pray that this person gets their Social Security. They're applying for that, So for JS, pray that this person gets their Social Security. Next one, I just was told to pray for them. I wasn't told about anything specific. So I'll leave it up to you as to what to pray for these two people. The first one is Jack Zebra, JZ, Jack Zebra. And the second one is Sam Girl, SG Sam Girl. So pray for JZ and SG. Someone would like us to pray that God protects his people wherever they are, and their houses from the things coming, specifically, I guess, Hurricane Milton. Someone would like us to toss a facility called Poydras Center. Poydras Center. They're doing some bad protests there, so we want to toss all the people in and around Poydras Center during a protest. I don't have more information. TD, Tom Delta. TD, Tom Delta, toss request for TD toss. Someone asked me to do a toss on a person named Isaiah. I don't have the last initial, no initials. It's always best to give me two initials for the person, but I made sure God would know who this person is. So we want to do a toss for this particular person named Isaiah. We have a prayer request for RS, Romeo Sierra. RS, Romeo Sierra, having a surgery scheduled for feet. Pray for a good surgery, good outcome, and recovery for RS. Scheduled for foot surgery. Pray for good surgery, good outcome, good recovery for RS. Okay, that was a lot, but this is an important thing we do, so. Okay, I'm going to delete these so I know they're all done. Okay, now we have another threat emerging courtesy of Iran in Syria. From reasonably reputable sources, I believe there are about 100,000 of these Iraq-Iran militias, IRGC, Houthis from Yemen, and assorted other psychiatric cases. And they're there to attack Israel, obviously. And they have a lot of weapons there, which we've been destroying. Now, I don't know how many weapons they really have. And this person tends to overestimate the capabilities of these terrorists and underestimate the capabilities of Israel, although this person lives in Israel and is very pro-Israel. A Jew. So we should pray about that we don't have a problem from Syria. Now, I don't have this confirmed solid, but it's rumored that Israel has told Bashar Assad, who apparently is back in Syria. He was in Russia with his family for a while, but I believe he's back. I'm not sure. And he was told, according to people, and they're probably right, he was told by Israel that in biblical terms, Damascus is going to be a ruinous heap if he keeps supporting these actions with these militants and the weapons coming in. Now, America has substantial military bases in northeast Syria, where the oil is, and they've been bringing in reinforcements, lots of equipment, I mean lots. America also is still, as of yesterday, I believe, still bringing in more airplanes that are called aerial refueling tankers. So there's a lot of these in the area. Israel, would you consider some of their converted ones, they got around 12 or 14, I think 14. And I would guess that America's bought at least 25 in the area, additional. As a guess, 10 would be the lowest, I think. Probably about 15 or 20 or 25 or 30. America has hundreds of these things, by the way, hundreds. So I think they got something like 700. I mean, it's a massive fleet America has for these. Because it enables the high-speed fighter jets to go rather long distances, you know. You could stagger your tankers along the route. Because the tankers don't fly as fast as the fighters, but you know, they move. They probably go 550 miles an hour, or something like that, like an airliner, maybe a little more even. But you just stagger them on the path. So when the fighter jet's down to like a quarter of a tank, guess what? There's another tanker up right ahead, and he tops off again. You also need tankers to cover the refueling on the egress, the exit from the battle theater. So it's the same thing. They'll stagger them if they have to. If they have a combination of something like 40 or 50 tankers, America and Israel, they could launch with hundreds of planes. Okay. Now, the scuttlebutt we're getting in Israel is that Israel's going to do a large attack on Iran. They're not going to hit the nuclear facilities. They can't. And it's not going to accomplish anything, even if they did. What are they going to do? You know? So Iran's nuclear facilities go down, and then they keep launching missiles at us. What's the value? We go and we hit the Iranian ports and piers and their facilities to store oil and transfer them to ships that are tankers that haul the oil around the world and make money for Iran. Great, but then they keep hitting us with missiles. See, it doesn't solve the problem. So I told you this weeks ago, well, not weeks ago, days ago, that the actual target package has to be missile launchers. Now, you can't get them all. I mean, you probably could if you launched, 400 or 500 planes. It'd probably take, a day, 24 hours to get most of them. But there would be launches in the meantime. So, what the word's coming down, and this is not real, it's just the rumors, that they're going to hit the military bases in Iran, their intelligence centers, their command centers, things like that, essentially trying to topple the government. They're going to hit the civilian government, which reports to Khomeini, which is a half civilian leader, political leader, and a half military leader. In reality, what he is a half religious leader and a half military leader. He's a nutbag. Believes his own lies. So, we'll probably hit a lot of airports, lots of radar, which will interfere with the missile launchings. It'll leave them open to more attacks. And where they collect intelligence, where they, operate military bases from. It's going to be not hitting civilian targets. It's going to be hitting military targets only. I think anything Israel does, there's going to be missile launches. And I think we have to put that into the equation as a reality. Okay? Now, Iran will be threatened. It already has been. That if they respond to our attack on them, the damage to them will be devastating. But warning and threatening psychotic, criminally insane people can work for, a few minutes, a few hours, a day or two, and then they build up in a frenzy, an emotional state about how great and powerful they are, and they come at you again. There's the only thing that really works against them is to deactivate them. They have no more weapons, or they're not a military organization anymore, or they're not alive. Then they stop. Nothing else. So if America never leaned on Israel with the humanitarian aid, the war would have been over in 2-3 months. It's estimated 94% of the Gazan civilian population is just about the same thing as Hamas in their mindset towards killing us. And this was a stupid move that Biden made with the humanitarian aid. Israel would have went in, bombed the daylights out of them, knocked out their internet, knocked out their water, knocked out their electricity. There'd be no humanitarian aid. And then, while Hamas is huddled up in their tunnels, we continue bombing their Hamas infrastructure, bombing their tunnels, bombing any of their weapons we can find, and just wait for the inevitable when they have to surrender. But Biden, following his sick ideas of not letting Israel win to appease Satan and the unclean spirits, I assume, and keep Hamas around for another day, is responsible for us continuing to have to fight with them. The amount of Hamas that has been killed now is possibly way higher than they let on. Them and PIJ together came to about 50,000, and they might be down to 15,000. But they still occasionally get some weapons going and stuff like that. They too, like Lebanon, like Hezbollah in Lebanon, hid all these weapons all over Gaza. In schools, in mosques, in hospitals, under the ground, in stores, or wherever, And Hezbollah put them in people's houses. Hezbollah took the houses over with their families and filled the attics and the house with weapons. So it's the same old idiocy, Oh, we don't need a Navy and an Air Force. We don't need submarines, bombers, jets, refueling tankers. No, we're so stinking smart, and our God is so strong, we can, work around it. And it doesn't work. If Israel thought the way to deal with the surrounding neighbors was to build an inventory of 400,000 or 500,000 missiles, we would have done it. It's not that effective. Also, wherever you store your missiles is subject to being destroyed. like I told you with the fighter jets, when an attack starts, they just scramble in an urgent warning. The pilots run to their planes and take off. And they fly around for a half hour, an hour, and then come back when it's over. You can't do that with missile warehouses. Also, you can't overrun the planes. When an attack starts, they launch. You can overrun a missile base, and you could overrun a military base. You could overrun a weapons storage facility, but you can't overrun planes in flight. So Netanyahu investing in the planes was from a military point of view, not a godly point of view. A valid one, very valid. So Iran is attempting to replace the problem with losing Hezbollah in Gaza with Syria. And this is very likely going to bring about the prophecy, I think it's Isaiah 17, Damascus shall be a ruinous heap. Because that's where Assad is located. That's where his military command, the control centers, his palaces, his offices, his intelligence service, his Pentagon type thing, they're all in Damascus. So there's nothing that Assad can do to get these terrorists out of Syria now. It's too late. The cow has left the barn. So he's going to get it. That's going to throw the country into disarray. There's a considerable amount of revolutionaries in Syria that are Muslim but hate Assad, and they hate Hezbollah. So if Assad has airplanes that are not great, but they're usable, they're better than what Iran has. So that'll go, the radar will go, the missile defense systems will go, the command and control centers will go, the missile and weapons storehouses will go. While I'm sure they have tunnels in Syria, I don't think it's really a big deal with them. Assad made a mistake by letting this happen, and now the country won't be a country. When his government is taken out, Syria will be in complete disarray. Hezbollah will try to control it. I don't know what Putin will do. He doesn't have much there. Putin had some soldiers on the border with the Golan Heights, and he withdrew them. He didn't have many. They were military police. He pulled them away. The Houthis are trying to get in the fight by doing missile launches to Israel and central Israel, Tel Aviv, but we take them down. The bombing in Lebanon was so severe last night. People were feeling it well into Israel. I myself didn't feel it. But in Nahariya, which is 7 miles from the border with Lebanon on the coast of the Mediterranean, not only were they feeling it, they saw it vividly, the flames and the fires and everything. Lebanon is getting, believe me, it's getting devastated. Nobody's coming to help them. Macron surely won't. Like I say, Macron's at least as bad as Biden, if not worse, but he doesn't have dementia. He's just a worthless piece of junk running a big country. So he's calling for arms embargo on Israel. That's going to make things worse for him. So the war against Iran, the attack on Iran, may not be that close because the IDF may be worried about Syria and they may want a few more days to keep decimating Lebanon and then start taking a poke at Syria. Or they may leave Syria alone, I don't know. I'm not sure what they're going to do. What Iran would want to see happen is a ground invasion from Hezbollah in Lebanon, from Hamas in Gaza, and from the various militias that Iran backs from Syria. Missiles, mortars, drones, and then a ground invasion, killing Jews and raping them, and that's what they all want to see. They're not going to see it. Now, Iraq is in there with Iran and Syria as a puppet state, but they're not really able to present much of any kind of threat to Israel. There's a distance factor. Israel is continually bombing all the routes from northwestern Syria into Lebanon, so there's no weapons coming in to Lebanon. Our Navy is off the coast of Lebanon, and we sent a message to Lebanon to stay off, to the civilians, to stay off the beaches. So it could be that we're going to bring some of our, I think it's Shayelet. We have Navy SEALs in Israel, I believe it's called Shayelet. They're basically special forces trained with the water. And we might bring a few hundred of those into Lebanon. We did that in Gaza to give them another front, so they're getting it from the south, and now they're getting it from their coastline on the Mediterranean, which would be their west. We had a scare yesterday in the evening that we were told there was some paragliders that entered Israel from Lebanon, which is one of their threats. But it turned out to be that they were two Israeli soldiers using paragliders to look for people sneaking in from the borders of Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, or whatever. So nobody shot at them or anything like that. Flying paragliders in from Lebanon is moronic. I mean, if they really want to go, cash in their virgins, it's a good way to do it. But we have a very intense military line at the Lebanon border. There's all kinds of radar coming and going. There's, of course, tons of night optics. There's all kinds of soldiers there, tanks, mobile artillery, armored vehicles, all sorts of weapons, A paraglider has a rather large parachute that would get picked up by radar, and then it would either be taken down by gunfire if they could get a visual, or an Iron Dome, probably gunfire. We just throw flares up in the air to light the sky up, and 50 calibers would just start spraying at them, and they'd land dead. The things are noisy, but I believe they have electric drones. But I would speculate they're nowhere near as fast and don't have the range of the motor powered. Even if it's electric, it's going to have a heat signature. Not as much as a diesel or gasoline powered one. It's not a viable threat. They also have dirt bikes, dirt motorcycles, and they threaten to swarm at us, but you can't, you know. We've already dug a trench. I don't think it's much of a viable threat. And it's a very tough thing to go fly into Israel, across the border without getting detected, not picked up on radar, not picked up by helicopters. I believe that was a chopper. Not seen or heard by the soldiers, you know, it's rather ridiculous, you know. It has psychological value, but that's about it. And also, they probably have to launch such a thing from pretty far from the border right now. And that gives our radar a lot of time to pick it up before it even gets to the border. Now, could they fly, you know, at a very low altitude, like 25, 30 feet? Not easily. If they do it during the day, they'll get spotted. If they do it at night, there's a thing called trees, you know, and when you hit the trees, you get killed. They'd have to go higher. They'd probably have to be 100 feet. At least, probably more. It's just not, you know. Some people in Israel got shaken up, but I don't think it's viable. When they do get into Israel, then what do? You pretty much have to navigate these things with both hands. You're not going to be able to have a machine gun and start spraying bullets at people on the ground. First of all, you're moving, you're not stationary. People on the ground might be moving too. And that's quite a challenging thing to do at distance. While you're moving, to hit a moving target, you know. Not simple. And a lot of Israelis, like our militias and stuff, have military rifles, and they'd start firing at the thing avidly and getting on the radio, and it would be getting tracked, and it wouldn't have a future. If the guy lands, landing's not so easy. He needs an open space because he has to come in at a speed and start lowering his altitude, and then he has to hit the ground running, literally, to sit down, and then he has to buckle himself out of the paraglider, grab his weapon, and deploy. But the chances of not being seen are pretty small. And he'll get killed. And he's certainly not going to bury the paraglider. That's a big job. So he's going to leave it, so we would know where he landed, you know, if we didn't see him. You know, it's not too realistic. Hezbollah might try to make a death run at the border, but it would be a massacre on them. They'll just get mowed down. From helicopters, from jets, from artillery, from mobile artillery, and from the machine guns on the tanks and the mobile artillery and the Humvees and the armored personnel carriers, plus the rifle fire from the soldiers, plus mortars. It's just going to be a massacre. That's it. I think the Israeli army wouldn't mind such a thing at all. They would be behind cover and the invaders would not, because you can't be behind cover while you're invading, you gotta move. It would just be a wipeout. If they want to go for martyrdom, that's the way to do it. You know, it's like in America, death by cop. This is death by Israeli Defense Forces. I don't know what's going to happen with Syria. We may have a longer delay hitting Iran than a lot of people think if the Syria thing's a big threat. The American buildup of forces in Syria is saving grace. They will, more than likely, attempt to take out the American bases at the same time or before they start opening up on Israel, because they'll be afraid of what the Americans might do. It's American and British bases. So the UK came out with a statement that said they might help Israel attack Iran. It wasn't to defend itself against Iran, to go blow up Iran. So there's a high probability America at this point, I would go as high as 70%, 75%, that they will be in the fight against Iran. Now, there's a theory that they'll help defend Israel while Israel delivers a big blow to Iran, and as soon as they see Iran retaliate, they'll go in the fight. Iran is dead bent on threatening any of the nearby countries that take down missiles and drones headed to Israel with attacking them. So that would include the relevant countries would be, I guess, I don't think Kuwait does it, but it would be probably Bahrain, UAE, Jordan, Saudi Arabia. And that's Iran trying to control the Middle East. Iran ran some sort of meeting, creating policy with Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, various militias in Iraq and Syria, and the Houthis in Yemen. And this is exactly what the Americans are afraid of. It's Iran controlling the Middle East and choking the oil off from America. This is exactly what they're afraid of, and Iran is doing it. So it is a possibility that when Iran unleashes and America gets involved, that Russia will get involved with NATO in Europe, using the Middle East as a distraction. And there's less probability as well that China and North Korea join in the fracas as well in the Asia-Pacific theater to try to overwhelm America. It is a possibility. I'm not leaning heavily on that right now. It could happen. It wouldn't be out of context, but I think we need to see some other things happen first before we're going to see that. So let me start talking about, well, let me check my notes for a second. I'm not so sure that this plan that they have to dismantle the government and the military of Iran and thus stop them from attacking is that great of a plan. I'll tell you what's good about it. If the military is completely busted up and disjointed, they may become very fearful and say, if we attack, we're going to get wiped out. And then the Khomeini and the others will say, yo, attack, attack. And they'll say, no, you go attack. You know, but I don't see that. There's talk of an explosion inside of Iran that equated to a 4.5 on the Richter scale earthquake, and there were no aftershocks indicating it was not an earthquake. Wow. These things have happened before, and it's usually a large conventional explosion. So they probably had some bomb or missile that was of a large weight, and they detonated it to see what it would do, and it causes that kind of localized disturbance on the Richter scale. We've seen this before, to lesser extents, like 2.4. So this was just a big one. It wasn't a nuke. They don't have nukes. If they had nukes, the behavior of both sides would be entirely different. It wouldn't be like this. Okay. Now, let's go to Matthew 5, verse 5. I just want to cover this with you because it's been kind of gnawing away at me, okay? Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Now, the chances are high. Let me go into the Hebrew New Testament. Yeah, the New Testament was originally written in Hebrew. What they did is they took the Greek New Testament word and they went and found it in the Septuagint, which was a translation of the Hebrew Old Testament into Greek that was done some years before Yeshua came to earth, so they didn't have as much of an axe to grind, okay? And they then ascertained what Hebrew word that Greek word was replacing, and then they put the Hebrew word back in the New Testament where that was. Okay, so let me check it in the Hebrew. But I'm pretty sure it's Haaretz, the land. Yeah, Haaretz. It's the land of Israel. So the meek shall inherit the land of Israel, which is very consistent with what we see in Zechariah 12. I'll read you one of these passages so you get it. Where is it? 9? Where is this? I'll find it. Give me a second. It's in verse 8, Zechariah 12:8. In that day shall Jehovah defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them, the feeble and the meek. I'm sure you can see that. Among them at that day shall be as David, and the house of David shall be as God, the angel of Jehovah before them. So that is what it's really talking about. And it's not the earth, it's the land of Israel, the inheritance. Okay. So I got that covered. The church teaches the scriptures, but they prefer lousy translations that cover up way more than it reveals. Let's go to Jeremiah 30, verse 23. Now, you got to remember that Jeremiah 30 is the birth pangs. And let me just jump around Jeremiah 30 real quick to make it come to life for you. Verse 3, 30 verse 3. For lo, the days come, saith Jehovah, that I will bring again the captivity of my people Yisrael and Judah, saith Jehovah, and I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it. So that's, indicative. Verse 5, for thus saith Jehovah, we have heard a voice of trembling and of fear. Well, in Zechariah around verse 2 or 3, it says, make Jerusalem a cup of trembling. Ask you now and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. Okay, so this is your birth pangs here. The travail is when the woman gives birth. The water broke, the cervix is well dilated, and the baby's crowning. That's the travail, the baby's coming out. All right, this is the birth of a nation in a day. 1948 with the UN, the satanic UN. Come on, don't even go there. That's not it. So, Jeremiah 30 is talking about this time we're in now. Okay, now here we go. Verse 23 at the bottom. Behold, the whirlwind. Now let's stop and look at the whirlwind word. It's 5591 in the Hebrew, sa'ar. It means a tempest, a storm, or a whirlwind. And let me get a little more specific. A whirlwind means it's going like this. It's a tornado, a whirlwind? Yes. Is a hurricane? Sure. When you look at the pictures of the hurricane from above, it's moving like this, or it's moving like this. It's spinning also. It's the same thing. It's a whirlwind. They're both whirlwinds. The whirlwind of Jehovah goeth forth with fury, a continuing whirlwind. The word for continuing is not necessarily continuing. Destroy would be a good word, better than continuing. And that's what you're seeing in America. Continuing whirlwind of the Lord. You saw that previous hurricane that devastated North Carolina, was it Helene, the other day. They're still suffering over there. And I believe tomorrow, Florida is going to get, I think Tampa they're talking about, I'm not sure, is going to get hit with what's now a 5 hurricane. 5 is super scary. When I lived in Florida years and years ago, if there was a 1 or a 2 hurricane coming, I wasn't very concerned about it. We'd stay home, that's about it, you know. Because as soon as it hits land, it drops 1 point. So if you got a 2, as soon as it hits land, it's a 1. And then once it gets inland, maybe 10 miles or less, it would go from a 1 to a tropical storm. And if you got a 1 on the hurricane scale, as soon as it hits land, it's a tropical storm, and not much to worry about. A 3 is concerning, but again, when it hits, it's going to be a 2 and then soon a 1. So it's not that significant, but it could bring a lot of rain, flooding, this and that. It's scary, and a 3, I would pay close attention to see if we had to get out of town. I would watch it closely and be not casual about it. Okay? Now, when you start talking about a 4, now it's very dangerous. Very dangerous. Again, as soon as it hits, it's going to be a 3, but a 3 is bad. Roofs can go off, garage doors can go off, debris can go flying at very, very rapid speed. Things are going to come down from trees, limbs, branches, trees. Power outages are just about a guarantee. Sewage can get backed up depending how much rain. You could have a pretty bad go of it. So anything more than a 1 or a 2, you know, even a 1 or a 2, I would take the cars and fill them up. I used to have more than 1 car. I'd always have 2, sometimes 3. And I'd fill them up. So I had gas in both cars in case the power was down for 3 or 4 days. I never bothered with the generator, but I kept enough stuff in the house to eat and drink for a few days. I wasn't really worried about it. I made 3 to 4 days would be the max, right? But if we start talking 3s and 4s, I'd be on evacuation alert. And if I heard a 4, I would frequently make reservations, you know, and consider leaving. One of my great escape plans was I would go from where I was, which was the panhandle of Florida, to the amusement park areas near Orlando, like Disney World and Universal Studio, which would not be taking a hurricane if it was hitting up there. And I remember once I went with my wife, and we were sitting we checked in, went to the jacuzzi to unwind, and we met other people that were running from the hurricane too, who were sitting in the jacuzzi, you know. So, when you're talking a 5, though, it's bad, really bad. You're not going to really be safe, even if you're 20 miles from the coastline in Florida. Normally, if you were talking a 3 and you were 20 miles inland, the only thing that would really happen to you is you might get a lot of rain and some wind, but not bad wind. You'd get probably winds under 75 miles an hour. But the bigger the higher the number of the hurricane, the bigger the bands get. And when you're talking about a 5, these bands are huge, so they're going to be a lot of water. a lot of water, and the winds are going to be horrifically high, and it may cause some tornadoes too. That does happen. And this is where you see roofs come off, people going up to the top of the roof and hiding from floods. One of the best ways to hide from a flood is buy yourself a good little boat, okay? You know, people use a canoe, they're not so stable. You could just get yourself a small wooden boat of, 12 or 14, 15 feet or 10 feet, and put a small, 2 horsepower motor on it, extra gas, or you could even use oars. And when the waters start coming in, you just go sit in your boat and you'll just start floating. So, assuming there's no tsunami coming or anything crazy like that, the water levels just keep going up, you just go up with the boat. But you're better off with putting a power engine on it, because you don't want the water and the wind to push you into objects that might break your boat. So if you've got a motor, even if you get a 3 or 4 horsepower motor, it's better. But you don't want to have if you've got a little cabin boat or a ski boat that's 20 feet or something like that, you're still going to have, you're going to need about probably this much water to keep the boat from running aground. It's going to work. In Florida, alligators come on the land, but alligators are typically not that aggressive. Snakes will be around. Fish could come swimming in. Could sharks come in? I've never heard of anybody getting. We've seen them, but I never heard of anybody getting shark attacked. The gators aren't exactly going around looking to eat people. They're not all that bright, and they just feel curious, and they get pushed onto the land, and they go on the land, and they used to be land, and now it's water, and they just swim around looking for what's going on. They're not out there hunting and say, "Oh boy, what a great chance to kill all these people. We hate people. Let's kill them." That's not what they're doing. The same with sharks. There's sharks there, they're looking to find things to eat, which is usually going to be fish or food, like packaged meat or something like that, So this could be very bad, and it comes on the heels of something very bad. Now, I've done studies along with a million other people that when America did bad things to Israel, they got hit with hurricanes like Katrina, and the timing with this over the years was so close that it was not coincidence, and it happened like 10 times. Tornadoes, hurricanes, Bush's house got hit once, all this stuff with them, with forcing Israel to give land back and peace treaties, all this nonsense. Peace treaties is give land back, and this is the same thing. It's just a continuation, but this is where we're going to get into some prophecy that this is when the people dislike me. And they shouldn't, because I'm warning them, but it doesn't always work that way. Jeremiah 51 verse 1. Thus saith Jehovah, behold, I will raise up against Babel, it's Babylon in English, it means confusion, it's America, and against them that dwell in the midst of them, that rise up against me. Well, has America risen up against Jehovah? Of course. Not just with Israel. Look at the lifestyle of people in America. Look what they do. Rise up against me a destroying wind. Okay, what is destroying? Shachat. I'll see. Destroying is a pretty good version of that in English. to batter, B-A-T-T-R, like batter down the hatches, the wind's coming, you know, it's destroying wind. And the word for wind is ruach, which is wind. And will send unto Babylon fanners. Now, a fanner is, let's get the good words. So, or, oops, wait a minute, I want to go away. Okay, hold on. Let's see what English word Strong uses for this. It's 2114, Strong's number. It really would be a profane stranger or a fanner. Let's keep reading it. Thou shalt fan her. And that word is 2219, Sarah. It's probably got the same root. And it, in English by Strong's, to toss about, diffuse, winnow, cast, disperse, scatter. See, when they separate the good crops from the bad crops, from the junk, they do it on a threshing floor, and that's like a fanner. They separate the wheat from the tray from the junk, and they burn the junk, and they gather the wheat into the barn, like Matthew 13. Okay. And will send unto Babylon fanners that shall fan her, and shall empty her land, for in the day of trouble, let's check that word, 7451. It's not the vengeance word. Calamity, trouble, distress. Okay. Empty her land in the day of trouble. They shall be against her round about. Now, that's what they're doing to Israel. They're against Israel round about. It's a reap what you sow. They shall be against her round about. Well, we've read about Russian ships off the coast of America and some Chinese ships, right? Roundabout means, let's check the meaning. Yeah, it's circuit round. It's roundabout. Against him that bendeth, let the archer bend his bow, and against him that lifteth himself up in his brigadine. Okay, a brigadine is military clothing like armor. Yeah. In his brigadine, and spare you not her young men, destroy utterly her host. That's destroy utterly the army. That's what the host is. Now, for a long time, I've been telling you, Trump himself, about 6 or 8 weeks ago now, said there's 20 million illegals in the country. It's probably 21 or 22 now. Okay? And 70% are military-aged males. That's 14 million. Cut it in half, you got 7 million. Cut it in half, you got 3.5 million. I mean, even 3.5 million is frightening, but it's probably over 10 million. Okay? Spare you not her young men, destroy utterly her hosts. Okay, so I told you that China has up to 350,000 acres of land in America they're disguising to be used for agriculture. And a lot of these lands are in the name of companies. They can't directly pin the ownership to China. And they're foreign corporations. And much of these lands are adjacent to or next door to American military bases, the big ones. Very, very good fit here. Probably not a coincidence. In the day of trouble, they shall be against her round about. Now, that's not the sleeper agents, that's probably the enemies of America surrounding her with ships. How else are you going to be around about America? I mean, you could be in Mexico, you could be in Canada, I agree. But you're also going to have to be in ships or aircraft. Against him that bendeth, let the archer bend his bow, and against him that lifteth himself up in his brigandine, and spare you not, young men, destroy you utterly not a host. Well, the bow could be a missile launcher, and the arrow could be a missile. I'm quite confident that these sleeper agents on the land that China has have probably built themselves many missiles and missile launchers and shoulder-fired missiles, drones, and all sorts of stuff. Thus the slain shall fall in the land of the Chaldeans, that's America. Chaldeans are basically a type of witch, a fortune teller. America's loaded with witches. And they are thrust through in her streets. Well, if you shot them, they'd be thrust through with a bullet, I guess, as a way of stretching it. For Israel hath not been forsaken, nor Judah of his God, of Jehovah of armies, though their land was filled with sin. It is against the Holy One of Israel. It is. Flee out of the midst of Babel, and deliver every man his soul. Be not cut off in her lawlessness, for this is the time of Jehovah's vengeance. He will render unto her a recompense. He doesn't say day of vengeance, so it might not happen on the day of vengeance. It could, and it may not. Babylon hath been a golden cup in the Lord's hand, that made all the earth drunken. That's spiritually drunk. The nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations, the heathen nations, are mad. They are mad, they're nuts. Babylon is suddenly fallen. The word suddenly is piton. Yeah, it's suddenly, surprisingly, it's quickly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her, that's mourning. Take balm for her pain, if so be she may be healed. This has happened after she fell. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her, and let us go, every one into his own country, for her judgment reacheth unto heaven, and is lifted up even to the skies. Wow. Jehovah hath brought forth our righteousness. When you have the appearing of the sign of the Son of Man in the cloud, in Revelation 1:7, every eye shall see him. Okay. The Lord hath brought forth our righteousness. When you see him as a believer, you'll be changed. You'll have everlasting life. Arise, shine, your light has come. You'll shine like Moses did, and they had to cover him with a veil, I believe. The Lord hath brought forth our righteousness. Come and let us declare in Zion. Now we're going to the great Exodus to Israel. Let us declare in Zion the work of Jehovah Elohim. Make bright the arrows, gather the shields. So could you look at it as an arrow, as a missile, and a shield, things like an iron dome or something? You could. You hope, but I don't know if that's correct, but you could look at it that way. Maybe we should be looking at it as Roman era weapons. I'm not sure. Jehovah hath raised up the spirit of the kings of the Medes, for his device is against Babel to destroy it, because it is the vengeance of Jehovah, the vengeance of his temple. I believe this vengeance of the temple is a carry back to the old days when the Babylonians destroyed the temple and burned it and everything. And it's the same unclean spirits that were behind that with the Babylonians that are behind America. The whore and all. Well, the whore is just an elbow. So the vengeance is against those serving the unclean spirits and against the unclean spirits by stripping them of what they have. Set up the standard upon the walls of Babylon, that's like a sign. Make the watch strong, so they're going to be watching the walls. It sounds like the border with Mexico. Set up the watchmen, again, border of Mexico. Prepare the ambushes, for Jehovah hath both devised and done that which he spake against the inhabitants of Babylon. O thou that dwellest upon many waters. Okay. You've got 8,000 rivers, probably about that many lakes. You've got the Great Lakes, you got the Atlantic, the Pacific, and the Gulf of Mexico. The other theories for the daughter of Babylon are the Vatican, which has no Jews to go back to Zion. There's only 200-300 people who live in the Vatican. I doubt there's a single Jew there. Then they go to Mecca and Medina, which are in the middle of the desert of Saudi Arabia, and there is no many waters. O thou that dwellest upon many waters, abundant in treasures. Well, that's America. Thine end is come, and the measure of thy covetousness. Now the covetousness is tied to mammon, the root of all evil. Jehovah of armies hath sworn by himself, saying, surely well, it's really hosts, it's his army, not armies, it's his army, the angels, hath sworn by himself, surely I will fill thee with men as caterpillars, and they shall lift up a shout against thee. Now, fill thee with men. Let's break the words down. I will fill. Let's look at that word. 4390 ma'al. Come on, it's disappearing again. Hold on. All right. Fill. Be full of. It means be full of. I will be, fill thee with men, as with caterpillars, and they shall lift up a shout against thee. Well, that's already happened. Trump said 20 million about 6 or 8 weeks ago of these illegals. So that's already passed. You have that already. That's not a surrounding for an invasion. They already have invaded and they're in America. He hath made the earth by his power. He hath established the world by his wisdom, and hath stretched out the heaven by his understanding. When he uttereth his voice, there is a multitude of waters in the heaven. And he causeth the vapors to ascend from the ends of the earth. He maketh lightning with rain, and bringeth forth the wind out of his treasures. Jehovah's behind the weather. Man doesn't control the weather. If you're going to say the man controls the weather, you're not following the Bible. Some will say, oh, man can also, yeah, so God shares his power with ungodly men. Yeah, sure. Great doctrine. Silly doctrine is what it is. Every man is brutish by his knowledge. Every founder is confounded by the graven image. For his molten image is falsehood, and there is no breath in them. They are vanity, the work of errors. In the time of their visitation, they shall perish. The time of their visitation, when they get visited by the Lord, they'll punish. They'll perish, not punish, they'll perish. The portion of Yaakov, the 12 tribes, is not like them, the heathen, the nations. For he is the former of, if you're a believer in Yeshua, you're part of Jacob. I've been telling you that for a long time. For he is the former of all things, and Israel is the rod of his inheritance. Jehovah of hosts is his name. Thou art my battle axe and weapon of war. This is Israel. Now pay attention. For with thee will I break in pieces the heathen nations, the heathens, and with thee will I destroy kingdoms. And with thee will I break in pieces the horse and his rider, and with thee will I break in pieces the chariot and his rider. With thee also will I break in pieces man and woman, and with thee will I break in pieces old and young, and with thee will I break in pieces the young man and the maid. I will also break in pieces with thee the shepherd and his flock, and with thee will I break in pieces the husbandman, the agricultural worker, and his yoke of oxen. With thee will I break in pieces captains and rulers. And I will render unto Babel and to all the inhabitants of Chaldea, same thing, America, all their evil that they have done in Zion, in your sight, saith the Lord. Okay. Quite a lot here. It's very possible that Israel destroying these people, which we just read about, can happen before the appearing of the sign of the Son of Man. Most likely we're already in it. Most likely it's because we're in the year of recompenses, the payback of God's enemies, which are manifesting in a way to stop Israel from existing, and God's chosen people from existing. Now, this may already be getting fulfilled. Look at Gaza, look at Lebanon. It's very likely going to happen. I have not been able to establish or see Israel fighting against America, in America. I haven't seen that. I've often wondered about it, but I don't see it. It's not us that go there and do it, and I don't see the two witnesses doing it. Maybe the two witnesses will help get the people out of America, but I don't see them destroying America. But maybe. It says, I will kindle fires in and around the cities. It's a stretch to say it's the two witnesses, but I don't see the two witnesses doing it. I don't have a scripture that I could really confidently tell you that they do it. I don't have a scripture like that. And with thee will I break in pieces captains and rulers, and I will render unto Babel, to all the inhabitants of Chaldea, all their evil that they have done in Zion in your sight, saith Jehovah. So they're going to be doing a lot of bad things to us. As Israel emerges and starts conquering, like we just read about, the battle axe, The hammer of the whole earth is America, and it's going kaput. So the inheritor is Israel, right? The battle axe. And we've got Jehovah behind us. Israel, America doesn't. So there you go. That's Chief snoring, if you hear it. So they're going to do some evil here to us. That means they're going to have troops here, which they do, and so forth. Well, now I'm in verse 25. Behold, I am against thee, O destroying mountain, saith Jehovah, with destroyeth all the earth, and I will stretch out my hand upon thee, and roll thee down from the rocks, and will make thee a burnt mountain. And they shall not take of thee a stone for a corner, nor a stone for foundations, but thou shalt be desolate forever, saith Jehovah. Set you up a standard in the land, blow the trumpet among nations, prepare the nations against her, call together against her for the kingdoms of Arat, Mini, and Ashkenaz. Those are the stand countries that are allied with Russia. Appoint the captain against her, cause the horses to come up as the rough caterpillar. So it looks like after the sleeper agents do her in, after the storms do her in, then we see the nations coming against her. Prepare against her the nations with the kings of the Medes, the captains thereof, all the rulers thereof, and all the land of his dominion. I don't see Iran here or Persia, so I think that Iran, Iraq, and Syria have bit the dust already. I think that's the provocation that causes the sleeper agents to break out. And the land shall tremble in sorrow, for every purpose of Jehovah shall be performed against Babylon, to make the land of Babylon a desolation without inhabitant. The mighty men of Babylon have forborne to fight. They have remained in their holes. Their might hath failed. They became as women. They have burned her dwelling place. Her bars are broken. One post shall run to meet another, and one messenger to meet another, to show the king of Babel, that would be whoever's in the White House, that his city, it just says city, is taken. That's Washington, D.C. at one end. That's his city. The king of Babylon city is Washington, D.C., which is the whore in the last verse of Revelation 17. You read that. I can read it to you, refresh you. Revelation 17, verse 18. And the woman which thou sawest, that's riding on the beast, not Satan the beast, thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. Well, you put that together with Jeremiah, 50:51, it's easy to see. So I hope this helps you, but, the whirlwinds, they don't just happen, there's a reason, okay? America's being weakened. It started with the first hurricane, and it's going to keep going. It's rather late in the year. The hurricane season actually can extend to, I think, the beginning of November. But it's rather unusual to see major hurricanes past September, yet here we are. August and September are usually your worst hurricane times. All right. Continuing whirlwind falling on the head of the wicked. It started and it's going to keep going. Someone was explaining to me I should show you people, and it was a very, very good point this person had, that I should show you people that in Zechariah 12:10, when they look upon the one whom they are pierced, was not fulfilled previously. Okay. The first sign of that is Zechariah 12:10 says they look upon the one whom they pierced and they mourn him as their firstborn and only son and only child and so forth. So there was no mourning when they killed Yeshua in the past. Nobody was mourning. Maybe, Yeshua's mother and Apostle John, but it says in Zechariah 12, all the families of Israel will mourn. So that did not happen in the past. And if anybody tries to play that one on you, they're pretty dumb. But they do try it, okay? Now, some of these clowns will also tell you that Acts 7:55, although I have not heard this particular person told me he was picking it up, and I could certainly believe it. Acts 7:55 was also the same as Zechariah 12:10, and we'll show you how absurd that is. Now, this is talking about the stoning of Stephen. We'll pick it up in verse 51, Acts 7:51. You stiff-necked and uncircumcised in heart and ears, you do always resist the Holy Spirit, as your fathers did, so do ye. Which of the prophets have not your fathers persecuted? Oh, and they have slain them which showed before of the coming of the just one, of whom you have been now the betrayer and murderers, who have received the law by the disposition of angels, and have not kept it. When they heard these things, they were cut to the heart, and they gnashed on him with their teeth. But he, this is Stephen, being full of the Holy Spirit, looked up steadfast into heaven and saw, let's count, Stephen being full of the Holy Spirit, that's one, right? Looked up steadfast into heaven and saw the glory of God, that's two, and Yeshua, that's three, standing on the right hand of God, that's where Yeshua is, on the right hand of God, until his enemies are made his footstool. Four, Holy Spirit, glory of God, Yeshua, and God the Father. So we could take the Trinity and throw it out the window. The word Trinity or Triune Godhead never appears in the Bible. And said, behold, I see the heavens opened, and the Son of Man standing on the right hand of God. Then they cried out with a loud voice and stopped their ears, and that's because of the unclean spirits were very grieved, probably that were in them, and ran upon him with one accord, and cast him out of the city, so they didn't want to kill him in the city, and stoned him, and the witnesses laid down their clothes at a young man's feet whose name was Saul, which is Paul, Apostle Paul in the future. And they stoned Stephen, calling upon God and saying, Lord Yeshua, receive my spirit. Well, when we read about it in Zechariah 12:10, it's the whole house of David that sees him and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem in Israel that see him. And in Revelation 1:7, it's every eye shall see him. Here it's one person who saw this, nobody else. And nobody is mourning. All the families of Israel mourn in Zechariah 12. So it's clearly, you got to be extremely Bible dumb and to believe that's these stories. I mean, you got to be ignorant of your Bible. And there's plenty of people in the church that don't bother reading the Bible. They just listen to what the pastors shovel at them. So what do the Jews, what do the church people not really like about this whole thing about an Israeli Jewish gospel? What is the problem with them? Well, it runs deep. You see, I went to church for a few years and I know about it, as do you, and you probably went to churches too. It's very, very non-Jewish. And they, of course, changed the Sabbath with no authority. It's in the Ten Commandments to not work on the Sabbath and make it a holy day, and they changed it to Sunday, and they don't even make Sunday a holy day. But anyway, it's really a non-Jewish operation, okay? People were a little concerned with Israel, but not very concerned. They got their own problems, their own minds, their own drives, desires, wants. Israel, one day, right? They're ignorant of the scriptures. They're ignorant of Hosea 6:1 and 2, the 2,000-year punishment. And they just think it's going to continue to go on and on and on, like Satan does, because they're of Satan. So now, what does the true gospel say? Well, the Levites are back, because in Malachi, Elisha's training them and to operate and do the offerings in righteousness, which means that their lives are together. They're walking according to the law, and the law is not dead. And there'll be another temple with the glory of God of Israel, which is completely foreign to them. They don't know who it is. They don't understand that at all. They're not taught about it. And there's going to be 2 witnesses, but they throw them off into the tribulation, so they don't expect them to show up any day now, as the scriptures indicate, to start working openly. And they, imagine they're looking at this. Okay, you mean there's going to be a bigger Israel. They're going to get rid of their enemies. And there's going to be Levites and Kohanim running an altar by a temple again, making sacrifices. But that's all wrong. Yeshua made the sacrifice. We're the temple. No, you're the temple of the Holy Spirit. But there'll never be a temple. Oh, yeah, so we got to get rid of about 20 chapters of the Bible and throw it out the window because Pastor Bob, or worse yet, Pastor Mary, told you that's never going to be the case. Yeah, right. And, we're going to have to leave our countries and stop in the wilderness and pass under the rod and enter into the bond of the covenant, but we are in the covenant. All we have to do is have faith in Yeshua. Well, Yeshua said faith without works is dead. What kind of works was he talking about? You think he was talking about lawn mowing, playing golf? What? Works of the law. Yeshua said the law is not dead, but they don't believe the Bible. They believe their teachers, not the Bible. Where did Yeshua say that? It's very easy. I'll just read it quickly. Matthew 5:17, I believe. Think not that I came to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. Now they say he fulfilled it, so it's done away with. This is idiotic. Read the next verse. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments, and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. That's it. It stands by itself. So when you say you're going to ignore this, let's just be direct. You're calling Yeshua, the Word made flesh, a liar. Because the Word is there, you have it, it's in your Bible, you don't want to believe it, you want to ignore it. Is that blasphemy? Not exactly, but it's approaching, I think. But I'm not God, so we'll get off the blasphemy. But are you calling Yeshua a liar by denying his word? Sure you are. You're saying, I know better than Yeshua. I know this isn't the way it is, you know. So trying to sell them that there'll be animal sacrifices, there's not going to be clean and unclean food anymore. All the food is clean in Acts 10. That's what it means. It's very direct. So you could eat whatever you want. You want to eat, disgusting critters from the bottom of the sea that are bottom feeders, go ahead. It's clean. You could do it. You want to eat porky pig, it's clean. You could do it. Okay? You can eat whatever you want. All fruits and vegetables are clean. All the anything that grows with the plants is clean. There's unclean birds. You want to go eat a vulture? Be my guest. Go eat the vulture. You could. I wouldn't want to eat them, but you could. That's what Acts 10 is about. It's very plain and obvious. Okay, so. The law is not dead. It was suspended. Why? How does that work? Well, Yeshua punished God and Jehovah and Yeshua punished Israel for 2,000 years in Hosea 6:1 and 2. And time's up. They got punished for killing the Messiah, the Son of God, the firstborn Son of God. And it's a 2,000-year punishment. That's it. And guess what? Your time's up on that. Okay? It's just about up, if it's not all up. I'll read it. It's a quick one. Hosea, I read it all the time, and the church never teaches this. They don't want you to know. Come and let us return unto Jehovah. Now, they can't say this applies to the church, so they won't teach it, because return to Jehovah means they're falling away. So they'll never teach this. For he hath torn, and he will heal us. He hath smitten, and he will bind us up. After 2 days, Peter said, 1,000 years is like a day unto the Lord. So the punishment is not for 48 hours. It's for 2,000 years. After 2 days will he revive us, bring us to life. That's the appearing of the Son of Man, when we have everlasting life, which is not immortality. Read John 6:40. In the third day, that's the millennium, will raise us up. It's not exactly raise us up. We'll be in his sight. In other words, Yeshua and the glory of God of Israel will both be enthroned on a throne in New Jerusalem, and we'll have access to them. and live there with the streets of gold, with the see-through gold, the whole bit. Okay? So this is foreign to them. All right? And, doing the law again? Not wearing strange clothes? You mean dressing like Yeshua and John the Baptist? Those are your roots, people. Oh no, our roots are like Wigglesworth Smith and, schmucks like that, false teachers. That's what they think their roots are. And, you know, they're going to really observe the Shabbat, like the whole country's going to come to rest on Shabbat. What do you mean? Yeshua paid the price. Yeshua paid the price. Yeah, Matthew 24, he said, pray that your flight be not on the Sabbath. They won't follow this. They reject it. That was a prophecy into the future. After he died, and Sabbath was still going. And they go to churches that not only don't, yeah.
I noticed your bowl was empty.
What?
I noticed your bowl was empty.
Oh, they will not only not follow the Sabbath, okay, they changed it to Sunday. Now, Tammuz is the sun god. Now, for $1 million, well, I'm kidding. Let's guess. Well, I'll tell you when Tammuz's birthday is, December 25th. Sound familiar? Uh-huh. And if you were going to worship the sun god, what day would you worship him on? Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or perhaps Sunday? It's shocking to people to understand this. But this thing called the church is nothing of God. It's divisive. They got all these crazy doctrines. It's nuts. I don't want to go through all the crazy doctrines. I want to show you that the people in these churches just would feel so lost in a Jewish Israel. A lot of them, it's repulsive. They think that they're gods that are going to reign over Israel when they come down from the wedding feast of the Lamb with their crackpot rapture theories. They won't know how to deal with it. The true believers, the few that there are, will go for it. So during this 2,000-year punishment, in Hosea 6:1-2, God knew there would be no temple. For most of the time, there were barely any Jews in Israel. Or I should say Jerusalem too. But could you say Israel without a temple is not really Israel? Yes. This is a fake Israel. The Bible refers to it as Judah and Jerusalem. God doesn't call what we have now today Israel. The government calls it that, not the Lord. Will there be a temple when New Jerusalem is here? No. She won't need it because Yeshua is a high priest in the order of Melchizedek, and he did the sacrifice once and for all time. But he ain't here now. Scripture also says if he were on earth, he would be no high priest. Okay. So we're not going to have a high priest from the order of Aaron. The high priest, we have the anointed prince in the next temple. You can read it yourself in Ezekiel 45. It's right there in many places. 46, I think. It's all through there. That's the anointed prince that gets killed in Daniel 9:26 or something like that. It's not Yeshua. So this whole thing is foreign to them. They don't know how to deal with it. The churches never explain these things to them. They don't understand it. They think that every Sunday, if you're a believer, you get up at, they have a 9 o'clock service and an 11 o'clock service. You drive over there in your nice car, wear nice clothes. You sit there, you stand up, and you go, oh, you rock a little from the false unclean spirits calming you down. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. Never saying the name Jehovah or Yeshua. And man, they got wooden crosses all over the place, sticks and stone worship, you know. They go up there and they kneel down in front of the cross. If that's not idolatry, what is? You know? And they, you know, run around with, you know, the songs, and then they have a little sermon on something, and then they break, and most of them are in a dire rush to get out of there. And they write a check, and then the next week they come back and do it again. You know, oh, we're going to spend eternity in heaven. They do pretty much whatever they want. The churches generally don't care too much what they do. If they show up for service drunk or stoned, yeah, they'll deal with them about that. They'll have to stop it or throw them out. They rarely throw people out of the church unless they're disrupting the services, you know. But they don't care what they do as long as they keep it secret. If they start flaunting it, like a guy goes to the church and opens up a pornographic movie studio in the downtown city near the church, you know, and puts a sign in the window, I'm a member of Assemblies of God, you know, 42nd Division on Main and 4th Street, you know, in the window of this pornographic movie theater, they'd probably throw him out of the church. But it would take something like that, you know. I mean, if there was a woman that was working as a pole dancer and they knew about it, would they throw her out of the church? Depends on the church. Probably a lot of churches wouldn't. They might counsel her. They're not fighting sin in the church. They're encouraging sin. They just can't tolerate open, blatant sin in the church, okay? Like, you can't show up in the church and do bad things in the church, but what you do outside the church that they don't know about, they're not going to care about. So in other words, if you were getting high illegally, bombs, Iron Dome, I don't know if you hear them. Right. Pretty good barrage. Those are Iron Domes. Still going. Wow. Big barrage. My wife doesn't stay as calm as I do. I think it's over. Nope. Let's see. Probably over. The last Iron Dome could have just been an afterthought. See, when you have impacts on the surface, I know you heard the door and the window shake, but it's much worse. We used to listen to the attacks on Syria near us, and Syria is quite a ways away. And we would not only hear the windows and the doors shake and rattle, but we'd feel the pressure in our ears. That's it. Chief and the Alpha just slept through it. They're used to it. They say, oh, they're just noises in the sky. They don't do anything. I'm not going to pay attention to them anymore. The big dogs get spooky with it. They don't like it. So the birds, I don't think it registers too much with them. They detect it as being rather far away, and something rather far away is not anything they consider a threat. So they're not interested in it. So that's what it's like. That's what it's like. So you can see why we still have to keep dismantling Lebanon, Hezbollah up there. Let me look at our chat and see if I've got anything I got to deal with here. Oklahoma, huh? Somebody put something up in, I don't know what it is, Indian, I think, from India. No, you can pray about the weather. Don't worry about it. You never know. Look, Elijah prayed and it didn't rain for 3.5 years. So you don't have the scriptures on your side when you say you shouldn't pray about weather. You're certainly free to pray about weather. If God doesn't want to answer it, he won't answer it. But, don't be so condemning on yourself on this. There's no prayer blessing with tzitzit I ever heard of. The rabbis make that junk up. Don't pay attention to them. They're like the people in the church. It's the same nonsense. Don't bother with them. What they're teaching the Orthodox Jews is not to listen to the news. Don't worry about it. God's going to take care of you. Don't worry about it. You have nothing to worry about. See, what the rabbis teach them is to take all the blessings on a good, observant Israel that follows the law and worships God and loves God. And they apply it to an apostate Israel today. And that doesn't work. But they're leading the people astray. See, they think that God's going to save Israel and that he's going to keep them in control over restored Israel running the earth with them in power. And that's a comedy. I mean, that's what they believe because they're under delusions, of course, but that's never going to be the case. They're going. Ezekiel 34, they're going. You read it in Malachi 3, who could stand the day when Elijah appears? So the whole concept of going to leave America, no more Walmart, no more Super Walmart, no more, Price Club, Sam's Club, Ford, Chevy, pickup trucks, all our amusement parks, and all of this stuff, and go to Israel and follow the law and dress like they did at the times of Yeshua. Why? It was good enough for Yeshua and the apostles. It's not good enough for you. And live there with Jews that are going to speak Hebrew and Levites priests playing musical instruments in the temple, and the Kohanim, and there's an altar, and observing the holidays, and going to Jerusalem, and living in booths on Mount Zion. We're gonna do that. I mean, they don't want to do this. They don't want to live like Yeshua and the apostles. They live in a heathen land, and they're used to it, and they like it, and they have another gospel, and they have another Jesus, the December 25th kind, and they receive another spirit, and they want nothing to do with Israel. They really don't want anything to do with the true God and the true Yeshua. They just follow their other gospel, which basically you can do pretty much whatever you want as long as you don't flaunt it. Okay? If you go to the pastor and say, look, me and my wife have been doing stick-ups for the last year or two. That's why our offerings have increased. We've found a guy who taught us how to do stick-ups in bars, restaurants, stores, jewelry stores, and we're doing pretty well. We travel around the country. We do a stick-up, just one, and then we get out of town and come back. And we quit our jobs, and we got plenty of money, and we're tithing. And do you think that that's okay? Well, he's going to tell them no and this and that, but if they keep coming to church and give offerings, is he going to give them money back? No. Is he going to encourage them to continue that or stop? No, he's going to tell them to stop. He'll go to jail if he tells them to continue it. He can't do that. That's a very extreme example. That's probably not likely to happen. But, there's fornication in these churches, there's petting, there's dating with immorality. They don't care. As long as it's not open and blatant, they don't care. That's that. So what goes on, in Israel? These people, you think they're going to want to come here and live here like this? No. No, they're not going to want to do it. The same with Europe, the same with those in South Korea and in Central and South America and the Caribbean. They got their lifestyle. There's always some that are going to want to come and will come, but not that many, because this whole thing is foreign to them. Okay? They don't want any part of it. They're convinced the law is dead. You don't need it. They're convinced the Sabbath is dead. You can do it on Sunday, and you don't have to do anything at all on Sunday. If you want to have a job on Sunday and have a job on Saturday, the church certainly doesn't care. They'll say, sure, you can do it. The law's dead. But the Sabbath is in the Ten Commandments. Is murder and adultery allowed too? And they won't have a good answer for you. Because there is no good answer for that. I don't know what they'll say, but it's not going to be an answer that's going to work on anybody who knows a little bit about the Bible. So, the whole thing being around Jews, you mean I got to become a part of Israel? I'm going to be joined into one of the tribes and receive an inheritance with the Jews? What? I'm not a Jew. You see, they don't want it. And the evidence of this is like I told you. They don't want to give offerings to a Jew. They just don't see it. They see us as a bunch of schmuck people and themselves as God's new chosen people. Contrary to 50 or 100 scriptures that he's not finished with us, he's just punishing us. They don't believe that. They feel that God's finished with us and God's picked up this apostate evil church instead. Well, the church is worse than Israel ever was. It's much worse. I mean, Hitler was a Methodist. Is that bad enough? the royalty in England, or the head of the Anglican Church, Trump, Biden, all of them say they go to church. Trump's no Messiah. First of all, has Trump won? No. And if Trump does win, I understand now he's only got about an 8.5 point margin against the Calamity Harris. That's not it's substantial, but I don't know if that's decisive. If it was 15, 16 points, I would say it would appear decisive. But then he wins, great. He has no power till something like January 20th. And what do you do if Biden uses an executive order because there's war and suspends the election because of war? They don't want to believe America's the daughter of Babylon. They want to believe that they're taking the place of Israel. And that's that. So I'm just telling you, they wouldn't be, very prone going to Israel. And that's the sad reality, because Satan has grown his churches to be anti-Israel. Now, there are people that are there that are pro-Israel, but they're identifying with the church, not with Israel. Where if you're a true believer in Yeshua, you're in Israel, and all Israel shall be saved. It never says all the church shall be saved. It's always Israel. It's always Israel. He's the God of Israel. It never says he's the God of the Gentiles or the Goyim or the heathen. Man, it's nonsense, That's where they're lost. They're so lost, So a lot of them are not going to go with you on the great Exodus when you depart from America and Europe and Asia. They're not going to go because they don't want to. They don't want anything to do with Israel. So they'll stay where they are and perish. They can't relate to it. Yeah, I grew up Jewish. I was in a Jewish neighborhood, 99.9% Jewish. And everybody was getting bar mitzvah. The girls were getting bat mitzvah. That's not in the Bible, bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah. It's not, but they do it. And, everybody was Jewish. That's how I grew up. I come to Israel, everybody's Jewish, but a lot of Jews don't like the other kind of Jews, and they don't like Messianics. So it's not a very pleasant atmosphere here at all. It's quite trying. But, it is what it is. So they're estranged from Israel by the scriptures, or distantly removed or cut off, or whatever. Well, not cut off. They're distantly removed in their mindset from Israel by not knowing the scriptures, not understanding the prophecies, not identifying with Israel, not having anything to do with Israel, not being zealous for Israel, wanting to live in the land, anything like that. They're not there. They're very, very far away. So far away, they'll stay in their home country rather than go to Israel. Because they're not really believers. They went out from among you because they were not of you. They're not going to come with you when you go to Israel because they're not of you. They're going to stay where they are and perish. That's what will happen. that's what will happen. So, let's see if I have any questions or things in the chat. No, I don't think I have any. Okay, so I'm Moshe. Please pray for me and my wife. Pray for our peace, safety, protection, joy, and healing. Pray for our animals and pets that are all rescues to be happy, healthy, and whole. And keep praying for the bird that had the hole in the chest where the food was coming out, that had all the surgery. She's doing very well. Keep the prayers coming for her. Pray for our finances. We certainly need work in this area. And pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for better videos. And you might want to subscribe if you want to get my updates from the land of Israel when the eggs start hitting the fan, like the fighting with Iran. And please, it take you 2 seconds to hit the thumbs up button. So few people even bother doing that. It's amazing, you know. And that's what I got. So I hope you got something out of this, and I send my shalom to all those who love Mashiach. And 2.5 hours, huh? Okay, guys, I'm out. Thank you.